today. If you use insulin and have seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for a CGM today. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances cover continuous glucose monitors, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the CGM Health Hotline now.
Broadcasting from Now Media Network's headquarters in Houston, this is Purple Politics, hosted by political expert and commentator Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Join us to discuss the most important issues affecting our nation with fresh, balanced, and objective discussion on the first bilingual media network in the United States. Purple Politics starts right now.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Purple Politics. I am your hostess, Alina Gonzalez-Dockery, and I'm doing a little bit of traveling and visiting with family in a time where most people are gloriously looking towards college graduations and high school graduations and starting to plan the summer vacations. We are still dealing with so much drama as it relates to the defunct Republican Party, as well as all of the chaos that is occurring on college campuses, especially in the elite college campuses across the nation. So let's begin. The right starts to reckon with its Marjorie Taylor Greene problem. Kevin McCarthy's concessions 15 months ago aimed at securing the position of House Speaker cost him the job and continues to damage the Republican Party. Among these concessions was legitimizing Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, representative from the state of Georgia, to mollify the hard-right faction she effectively leads. However, increasing criticism from within the party indicates a growing concern about Greene's impact and her behavior. Senator Thom Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, described Greene as a waste of time and a horrible leader, emphasizing that she poses the biggest risk to the GOP's chances of regaining a majority. Because let's not forget, thanks to many people exiting the Congress and that are Republicans, just resigning and effective immediately, the majority is only by one. Greene's actions, like at the time of the State of the Union address, showing up, honestly looking very undiplomatic, in my opinion, and unprofessional, and some likened her to looking like she came from a trailer park. I don't wish to behold in that image or those people who do live in there, but she was not exactly living up to the standards of a congresswoman representing our great United States. Greene's actions, including her efforts to oust now sitting Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, and her stance on issues such as Ukraine aid and banning TikTok, have earned her criticisms from right-leaning media outlets like the New York Post, Fox News, and the Wall Street Journal. Even Newsmax, who is staunchly pro-Donald Trump, very extreme right, news agency, questions Greene's influence, indicating a shift in tolerance for her behavior within the Republican Party. While Republicans have criticized Greene before, McCarthy's concessions in 2023 presented her and the party with a slate-clearing moment. However, Fox News and other conservative outlets have recently added a skeptical stance toward her, reflecting the changing perception of Greene within the party. Let's talk about this. McCarthy gave the Freedom Caucus, that pesky squad on the right, no better than the Progressive Squad, headed by AOC on the left, the right that it only took one representative to call for the removal of a sitting House Speaker, which caused chaos. I mean, weeks of chaos. And now Marjorie Taylor Greene, whenever she doesn't get her way, doesn't like it, she is raucous, she is unprofessional, she is uncouth, and honestly, um, a disappointment for a female leader, in my eyes, in my personal opinion, because now she's calling for the ouster of Speaker Johnson because he taking on a leadership role, understanding the importance of his leadership role and the fact that he is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, that he was able to build a bipartisan, collaborative effort to move along bills, spending bills, the Ukraine, Israeli, and Taiwan support, as well as the TikTok ban, which, whether you like it or not, unfortunately, this is the hot ticket, feel good moment for them, I guess. She has been an obstructionist. She causes so much issues and also embarrassment. I mean, when you look at the fact that the realization that her behavior could harm GOP's brand has been growing, especially with the 2024 election approaching, despite Greene's attempts to elevate herself within the party and, always basically kissing butt to Trump, she isn't particularly popular among the GOP base. And her current crusade isn't aligned with the base's interest. GOP senators are bashing Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying she is dragging our brand down. Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina strongly criticized Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, calling her a total waste of time. This is absolutely deplorable, but also it shows that her obstructionist ways and the ways of Representative Getz of Florida and this small stream group, they need to take a major step back and look at, this isn't about their pet projects. This isn't about MAGA. This isn't about Trump. This isn't even about what their little select group they think they represent. This is about leadership and governance. And with Johnson defending his actions, stating that he allowed the House to work its will, emphasizing his commitment to doing what he believes right, which in effect is being a statesman, showing decorum, showing dignity in office, collaborating, working with, and negotiating all members of the House, which is what you're supposed to do as a leader. These are things that should be extolled. And actually, I find ridiculous that you are now demonized if you work and work together in a bipartisan way, which is what it used to be, how it used to be back in the 70s, 80s, 60s, 50s. I mean, every time. I mean, up until most recent. And as further example, with the chaos from the Congress and how some people, whether you're the squad on the left or this Freedom Caucus squad on the right, all they're showing is that they will not listen to different opinions, and they believe in disruption and continued outbursts to get their way. And no wonder, based on these are the examples that our young children are watching, our college-age kids, and this is the Gen X children, okay? Gen Zs are, I would say, for the most part, the children of my generation, Gen X, which makes me wonder where we went wrong, considering we were under, the guise of corporal punishment. We were under strict rules. Yes, there were latchkeys, but from the chaos of McCarthy to now Johnson holding on to his job because others have realized, correctly so, that they can't plummet Congress or the House of Representatives into chaos by even allowing her and other very vocal, boisterous, humiliating representatives to do a small portion, to do the will that, to exert their will on a body that is supposed to be governing the United States. Speaking of an arrests at universities are piling up as pro-Palestinian protests spread. And in fact, I would say that some are pro-Palestinian. And I don't know if that is the correct word, because what you're seeing is that you have a lot of young kids and a lot of outside group influence that are promoting and organizing and orchestrating very well these protests going around. But some, yes, are wanting a ceasefire. Some want peace, and it's Jews for Peace or pro-Palestine and stuff. But then others, when you see children with placards, and I say children because these are 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And yes, they may be adults in the eyes of the law, but these kids are holding out saying, I am Hamas, I am Hezbollah. That is a serious issue that we have in not even 23 and a half years from 9/11, that we have these young kids that seem to not know what is terrorism. I mean, when you see trans for Palestine, gays for Palestine, and then you wonder if you were in those very strict Islamic states, your life would be in danger. And it also then begs the question, why is it that our youth are willing to spread the letter by Osama bin Laden of the downfall and the evil ways of America when he plotted 9/11? This is something that is happening in academia. And when you look at the unrest in higher institutes of learning like Columbia, Yale, Harvard, now going into Rutgers, USC, where has there been a disconnect? Where has our educational system failed our children? The protests over the Israel-Hamas conflict have led to more than 200 arrests at several universities across the U.S., including USC, Emerson College, the University of Texas at Austin, and demonstrations began at Columbia University, which actually they're now just clearing out and negotiating with these kids. And one group that's not part of these negotiations are Jewish children these Jewish students feel threatened and at harm. But at Columbia University, with their demonstrations and their tent cities, have since spread to other states. Students are demanding that their schools divest from companies doing business with Israel. But yet when you ask many of these same kids, they don't even know what companies. At USC, 93 people were arrested for trespassing after the university ordered protesters to disperse. The campus is now closed to all students. The campus remains closed until further notice, with classes moving online for the rest of the week. Tell me how that is a good resource for your funds when you are trying to educate your children. Demonstrations began at Columbia University in New York and have spread. So we're going to continue with this topic in our next segment because it's very important to see when we have our leaders who are unwilling to talk to each other, work together, listen to each other's opinions, maybe disagree on each other's opinions, but be able to show a decorum, it is now being reflected into our college students. I am Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Tune back in right after this quick commercial break.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
Have you ever had to hire multiple contractors? It is a daunting task that takes a lot of management time and impacts the core business or the company that time you spend with your loved ones. At Texas Home Property Solutions, you can count on a responsible company that can tackle all your general contractor needs. Electricity, painting, remodeling, plumbing, air conditioning, and roofing. Hire us and forget it. With over 20 years of experience, Texas Home Property Solution will deliver your project on time and within budget, with a high level of quality and integrity, no matter the size or complexity. If you are a company, a government institution, or an individual who needs a general contractor, you need Texas Home Property Solution. Take a decisive step and call us today for a free consultation.
With the pro-Palestinian protest intensifying nationwide and with multiple arrests to include 108 arrests at Emerson College alone, these protesters have escalated nationwide, leading to these arrests at universities across the United States and people scratching their heads going, how is this possible? At the University of Texas at Austin, troopers arrested over 34 students during a protest organized by the Palestinian Solidarity Committee of Austin. The university vowed not to let the campus to be taken by the protesters and condemned actions derailing the campus mission. At the University of Southern California, or USC, police have arrested several of the demonstrators after clashes erupted when authorities attempted to clear an encampment. USC's campus is now closed and classes moved online as a safety measure. In fact, and this isn't just a First Amendment right that they're saying, oh, it's our right to speak up. Yes, you are allowed to peacefully protest. What you're not allowed to do is threaten harm to a group of people, which many of these demonstrations are proving to be extremely vitriolic and anti-Semitic. Closing down buildings, blockading buildings, threatening Jewish students. When you have fear of your personal safety or your child's safety, yes, it is time to act. That is not protected speech. You do not have a right to threaten. You do not have a right to harass in that sense. You're not allowed to, it shouldn't be blocking federal access or roads. Similar protests have occurred at other universities. And yes, if I seem very opinionated, it's because I don't understand. I have lived through the days of, I remember when the KKK would have organized parades through University of Florida or the downtown of Gainesville. And yes, but never were we threatened. Never were we felt like our lives would be at cost. But then with these kids that are screaming out, and some of them not even knowing, but then saying that they want Israel to be destroyed, that all Jews should be expelled, and stating that Jews should be expelled from campus. There is a serious issue in academia in how these kids are being educated, because the propaganda and their ability to be swayed is at an all-time high. And Brown University is now on target with similar protests, where 90 students established an encampment in violation of university policy. At Ohio State University, 2 students were arrested during a pro-Palestinian protest, and at the University of Minnesota, 9 protesters were also arrested and later released. These students are also facing suspension or expulsion. And then that's when they're calling foul, by the way. They don't want to be held accountable for their actions. But yet when they do, then they say there's propaganda, and I've seen it on TikTok going, how unfair, they're locking us out of buildings and such. No, they're actually closing the schools down, universities, which these few thousand are affecting the whole community of university students. And we're going into finals. We're going into graduations. This is supposed to be a time of joy, reaching an end sight for the semester as well as some college careers, but instead we're dealing with chaos. This is chaos. This is unruly, and this is a direct derivative of propaganda. The demonstrations at Columbia University prompted the university to increase security and hold classes in a hybrid manner for the rest of the semester. Despite the university's ultimatum to disband the protest, encampments remain, leading to tension between protesters and university officials. Also, increasing the fear that is being expressed by Jewish students. Lawmakers and university officials have criticized the handling of the protest. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson went to Colombia and calling for Colombia's president Manouche Shafik to resign, while students remain steadfast in their demands and continue to organize protests in solidarity with Palestine. This growing pro-Palestinian protest movement and visualization is much over Israel's military invasion of Gaza. But let's remember something which nobody in these pro-Palestinian statements, which always have their faces covered, they never want to be known by who they are or what they represent or be able to be identified. And there's a problem with that. If you believe that this is the problem, that IDF should be immediately withdrawn from Gaza, and that Gaza needs to be, there needs to be peace between Hamas and Israel, show your face. Don't hide behind it. It's typical of Antifa. This is exactly like, well, not exactly, but it's heading down the road of BLM. And then you wonder, why are they stoking it up? Who is funding these very organized, orchestrated protests when you have students that are gullible? Now, I'm not saying all of them are. There's some that are truly, they have an affinity, they may be Muslim, they have an affinity with the stripes. Nobody wants to see families, especially young children, starving and hurt and killed. But nonetheless, you have to then say that the attack that started all this by Hamas on October 7th, burning, mutilating, raping, beheading children and women and elderly, and now I think they just showed proof of life of one U.S. hostage, Hashif, whose parents have been vigilant to keep his name out there in the news and to show to this government, which seems to have forgotten that we have U.S. hostages held in Gaza. While the scale of this protest are smaller compared to that of the BLM movement in following the killing of George Floyd in May 2020, the current movement has shown remarkable staying power and continues to grow. The protests have been consistent with demonstrations occurring across various cities and regions, including temporary blockades of transportation hubs like Chicago O'Hare International Airport and the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Also, in Brooklyn, they had a protest where they were flying the flags of the terrorist organizations Hamas, who also is the governing party. They are ahead of Gaza, and Hezbollah. Those immediately were taken down. Those people were taken out. They tried the same thing in Miami, and I will say I am a proud Floridian. I have been born and raised in Florida, and I could not be more proud that my governor has initiated swift action to ensure that the roadways are safe. You don't know who is going there. Why are you blocking roadways? We never were able to do that. I have engaged in protests in my day, but it was always with permitted action, and it was peaceful, and it was a demonstration. Never once did we try to cause this chaos, disruption, violence, vitriol, fear. So, and then looking at who is organizing these protests in the U.S., pro-Palestinian protests, and some are pro-Hamas, pro-anti-Israel, pro-anti-Semitism, while intensifying, it's supposedly demanding a ceasefire in Gaza and divestment from Israel, which, if we were to do that, a lot of the social media tools that these kids love, created by Israel, just saying. The protests are part of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which aim to pressure Israel over its policies towards Palestinians. Now, let's also remind these people, which these young people don't wish to acknowledge, one, that Hamas did an atrocity on civilians, not military, that the 34,000 those allegedly killed as during this war with Hamas includes militants, but they don't want to acknowledge that either. One has to wonder, when will it stop? One organization within our lifetime, led by Nerdine Kiswani, a 29-year-old activist, has been actively organizing protests. The group held a demonstration outside Columbia University, chanting slogans such as Columbia, you will see we are all SJP. Colombia, you will learn, refugees will return, illustrating the breach of pro-Palestinian protests taking place beyond college campuses. These protests are part of a broader movement that includes localized efforts to coordinate protests and events through encrypted apps like Telegram, WhatsApp, and Instagram. While there are concerns about connections to potentially dangerous groups, these protests have been largely peaceful for the most part. They have yet. But I mean, how peaceful when you have people trying to break down. I mean, they're no longer at the White House trying to, bring down the gates at the White House or defiling national monuments or desecrating satyrs or menorahs. This isn't a good way of putting your point across. Also, how about denouncing Hamas? Denouncing the violence that occurred that initiated this most recent war, or denouncing Hamas, who refuses time and time again any efforts to reach a ceasefire. Israel has been really placating a lot to their demands, but then they say, no, we don't need to. And unfortunately, this further proof that these rampant protests across the nation at the most elite colleges, Vanderbilt, some say the Harvard of the South, they immediately stamped out that encampment, and these students were crying foul and were basically whining on TikTok and other means. And you know what? That's a private university. No rights to stay on there and to trespass. That was stamped out. Maybe this is what we need. We need accountability. Perhaps my generation should have had, which I know I'm a product of accountability, but maybe these kids need to learn accountability. Concerns are being raised of the funding sources because of the well-orchestrated way that these, not even through social media, we have flyers that show what organizations are doing, flyers and invitations to the cool thing to do. And it's very reminiscent of like the Vietnam War days. Let's do sit-ins, let's do encampments. However, concerns have been raised about the funding sources behind some of these organizations. Several of these organizations, including within our lifetime, do not have public tax filings. Instead, they have a progressive New York-based nonprofit group called Westchester People's Action Coalition Foundation, or Westpac, as their fiscal sponsor. So as we go through this, one of the things that I implore my audience, and I would love for you guys to reach out to me, DM me on Instagram or something, or on TikTok if you see my videos reposted there, what you think. But the bottom line is there needs to be accountability, but there also needs to be a real question. Why is it that in academia, we have lost control of the narrative that these kids are so influenced and so able to be psyoped in a way to follow through with this without knowing the truth? I am Alina Gonzalez-Dockery, and we're going to take a quick commercial break. Be right back as we discuss the Senate passing the $95 billion package to help Ukraine and Israel.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
What if this happened to you when you're alone? Or what if it happened here? With MedGuard Alert, you're never alone. You can connect with medical professionals anywhere, anytime. And now MedGuard is introducing our exclusive new CareWatch. If you need help quickly, use it from anywhere to contact medical professionals. No cell phone required. The CareWatch is not only a life-saving medical alert device, it's a revolutionary health monitoring system that checks your blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation, and much more. And here's the best part. If you have Medicaid, you may qualify to get your CareWatch for free. The CareWatch is only available through MedGuard Alert. Call us right now. We have monitoring programs starting as low as $1 a day. The call is free, activation is free, shipping is free, and no contract is required. Remember, with Medicaid, you may qualify to get your CareWatch for free. Don't wait. Call us to get your CareWatch right now. Operators are standing by.
The Senate, the other side of the Capitol, has passed a $95.3 billion foreign aid package aimed at providing assistance to Ukraine, the defense of Ukraine against Russians' attack and attempt to overthrow it, Israel and their continued defense against rockets, missiles, and such, Taiwan, and aid to Gaza, among others. The bill includes provisions to bolster the Ukrainian defense systems against Russia's invasion, fortifying Israel's missile defense systems, or the Iron Dome, which was extremely effective when Iran, deployed 300 ballistic missiles and drones, and forced the sale of Chinese-owned TikTok in the U.S. The measure, which faced months of debate, split the Republican Party, with rank-and-file members, Marjorie Taylor Greene, openly rebelling against their leaders. The bill passed the House on Saturday and now awaits President Biden's signature after being signed into law on Wednesday. The aid package includes significant funding for Ukraine, with most of it designed for the U.S. defense industry to provide additional weapons, such as ammunition and rocket launchers. The bill also includes humanitarian aid for Gaza, as well as sanctions on Russia and Iran. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer credited the White House and Republicans who backed Ukraine for advancing the measure. The bill had broad support in the Senate, with almost all Democrats and a majority of Republicans backing it. The passage of the bill sends a strong message that the U.S. remains a trustworthy and reliable ally, according to Senator Chris Coons, especially in the eyes of Europe, although the European allies and friends are very much watching our election because they are nervous based on what Trump has made, the Trumpisms, his assertions that NATO needs to pick it up, the Europeans need to pick it up, their portion. But the reality is they have also been increasing their support, with Germany being the second biggest supporter of Ukraine. However, this bill has divided Republicans in both the House and the Senate. While a majority of Republicans supported the bill, some opposed it, citing concerns about federal budget deficits and domestic challenges. Senator Ted Cruz called his opposition to the proposal one of the toughest votes he has cast during his time in the Senate, expressing concerns about humanitarian aid ending up in the hand of terrorists. Very valid point. However, it is the right thing to do. Now, with this aid being passed, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell wants military buildup after big win on the Ukrainian aid. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell aims to increase military spending for our own protection after successfully leading the Republicans to support this $95 billion aid package. McConnell stressed the need for ongoing attention to the geopolitical challenges posed by China, Russia, and Iran, echoing Ronald Reagan's strategy of peace through strength. With the September 30th deadline for funding, the government looming, McConnell plans to push for increased defense spending. He argues that the current budget falls short in reflecting the need for a strong defense, citing Reagan's doctrine as a guide. President Biden has proposed $895.2 billion in base defense spending, but McConnell believes more is needed. McConnell's advocacy for increased military spending contrasts with his previous announcement in February that he would step down as the Senate's announcement that he was going to be stepping down as the Senate's GOP leader after the November elections. His success in rallying the Republican Senate support for this Ukrainian aid and Israeli aid package signals a shift in the party's focus from inward-looking policies to renewed commitment to global affairs. McConnell has been actively working to convince fellow Republicans of the importance of supporting Ukraine, arranging meetings with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and briefings on the national interest in aiding Ukraine. He sees conflicts in Ukraine, the Middle East, and Asia as interconnected and argues that abandoning Ukraine would embolden Americans' adversaries. Although McConnell succeeded in garnering more Republican support for the aid package compared to February, opposition from progressive Democrats and others is expected against any efforts to increase military spending to protect our own protection, for our own security. Also, you got to remember, we need to rebuild. This administration has given so much of our current weapons, and let's talk this $95.3 billion in aid. The vast majority of the aid going to Ukraine will be for defense systems, for ammunitions, for missiles, things of that nature, which actually will be produced here in the United States. But in the meantime, by providing so much arms to Ukraine, by helping and assisting with Israel's continued defense against hundreds of rockets launched from both Hamas and Hezbollah on a daily occurrence, we have depleted our own storages that we need to build up our military defenses. We need to shore up our own ability to protect ourselves. Let's not forget, we had Chinese spy balloons floating across the United States without problem. This also marks McConnell's way of going out and leaving a legacy. McConnell, who is 82 years old, yes, of the quiet generation, much like my parents, he has done his time, and he is trying to secure the United States. One thing is for certain: the progressives on the left, the MAGAs on the right, or the Freedom Caucus, whatever you want to call it, until such time as those in the middle, both Republican and Democrat and Independent, the moderates, or even the slightly conservative and things, until they get control back of their powers, of their parties, of the voting bloc, and not be bullied, not be terrorized by these small little factions on each side, then we can get back to a level of decorum and leadership. Mitch McConnell is correct, and you have heard even Biden say strength. Through strength there is security. Through strength there is peace. We are seen as weak. We have been getting hit ever since that disastrous Afghanistan exit, to now in Africa and Chad, where our military forces are pulling out, which is another major setback on the world stage of our ability and leadership in international ways. And yes, this election year is important, and European nations are looking at our elections, and some are fearful because Trump has stated that he has not necessarily been a big proponent of NATO or of the war in Ukraine, but he also has stated that, yes, he believes that there needs to be support. He just wants to make sure that it is pro rata, equalized throughout. But one thing's for sure, during Trump's first administration, we had a very strong, healthy military spending. We had been investing in our military and our security, it has been depleted over these past 3, almost 4 years. And Mitch McConnell's calls for more spending in shoring up our military, and at a time that we are now having difficulties even recruitment, let's hope that the powers be, the leaders, step up and say it's time to coalesce and do what's right. I am Alina Gonzalez Dockery. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and I want you to tune right back to when we're going to be discussing more news on the political trials and tribulations of former President Donald J. Trump. I'll see you right back.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
Don't want to alarm anybody. This may be shocking, but Donald Trump and his trials and issues are back in the news. I know, sounds unbelievable. Seems like every day we have to talk about it, but it's true because these are unexperienced, unforeseen times. But a divided Supreme Court appears open to some of the immunity claims for president's official acts in Trump's 2020 election dispute. Yeah. Both sides seem to be having some questions and maybe following some leads on this. The United States Supreme Court's conservative majority is leaning towards recognizing some level of immunity from federal prosecution for former presidents, but they express skepticism towards Donald Trump's argument that he should be absolutely immune from charges related to conduct during his presidency. The court signaled that it might send the dispute back to lower courts to determine if Trump's alleged actions during the 2020 election were taken as an office seeker or an office holder, either as the official president of the United States or a private person running for election. The case involves 4 criminal counts against Trump, accusing him of attempting to subvert the transfer of presidential power after the 2020 election. Trump has pleaded not guilty. The court's conservative justices expressed concern about leaving presidential power unchecked but also about constraining future presidents who might face threats of criminal charges after leaving office. Yes, this Pandora's box is a nasty one, and it's been opened. The liberal justices warned that granting broad immunity to former presidents would embolden sitting presidents to commit crimes, while the conservative justices worried that charges could be brought against future presidents. Justice Brett Kavanaugh suggested that such charges would cycle back and be used against future presidents. And that's true. This is weaponizing the DOJ. What we are seeing today is a travesty, not only on our Constitution, but also people need to realize it's not just about Trump. I mean, think about it. Right now, Trump is being tried in New York for supposedly committing fraud to embolden an election, right? Basically to help it. But yet Hillary Clinton, former senator of New York, resident of the state of New York, former Secretary of State, it has been found that she lied. She made her campaign made up the whole Russian collusion, and Obama administration actually went along with it by allowing the FBI and the CIA to wiretap a candidate's phones, and also, allowed the lie that has been found out. It is a lie that the Russian collusion was just a complete hoax. It was a complete lie. So why isn't Hillary Rodham Clinton being brought up on charges in New York, let's say, for the same election interference? And that is happening. Or could then this, let's say if Trump wins, can he then say, okay, DOJ, we're going to go after Biden for what he did for me? When does it end? The liberal justices warned that this is going to be a continuing tit for tat. The outcome of the case will decide whether Trump's case heads to trial. A victory for Trump could end the prosecution against him, while a victory for the special counsel would allow the case to proceed. The court's decision could also affect the 2024 election, as Trump could order the Justice Department to drop the charges if he returns to the White House. During the oral arguments, the justices grappled with whether a former president is immune from criminal prosecution for acts undertaken while in office. The court considered what constitutes an official act and questioned whether Trump's actions around the 2020 election were official or private. The case has raised questions about the extent of the presidential immunity and whether a former president can be criminally prosecuted. Trump's legal teams argues that this action were official in nature and therefore protected from prosecution, while the special counsel contends that Trump's actions were part of a private scheme to retain power. The court's decision is expected by the end of June. Now, again, this also has implications because the longer they hold off on making a decision, the Washington, D.C. federal criminal trial cannot proceed. So therefore, if they do, let's say they make a decision, no blanket, there's no immunity, you can proceed, then that makes the trial in Washington, D.C. beginning in fall, which leading right into the November election. Now, if the Supreme Court of SCOTUS says we're going to kick it back to the lower court so that they can make a determination whether these acts are either by a private individual or in an official manner, that will then further delay the ability to bring to trial these issues or these indictments until such time after 2024. And also another interesting and parallel SCOTUS case that we have is that the Supreme Court of the United States also heard arguments as to whether the obstruction charges that are being brought against some of the January 6th rioters, I'm not calling them peaceful protesters. They weren't. They were rioters. No better than what we are complaining about these young college kids doing. No better than the looting and the rioting and the burning down and violence we saw during the George Floyd riots plaguing cities around the nation. But there is an important thing because they have now heard an argument and had their arguments about whether you can bring an obstruction case that has no nexus to the actions of Jan 6. And if it is found that no, you cannot bring this obscure law, which was literally brought because against Arthur and Anderson when they were shredding financial documents and such, where that was the obstruction, whether this could be here, because they were even questioning in that argument, well, what about the congressional member who flipped the fire alarm to prevent a vote because he didn't like it? Or the pro-Palestinian group that have stormed the Senate cafeteria, stormed the Senate hearing chambers, preventing them from going forward on there. Or the fact that you've had other peaceful protesters, which in fact were mobs, doing everything they can to prevent legislative hearings to occur. So in other words, what's good for the goose is also good for the gander. You can't just have one side saying, oh, that's okay, we're going to allow you to commit hara-kiri to prevent and obstruct the ability for Congress to do its job or for the Senate to do its job, but then say, oh, no, we have, you're not allowed to protest us and prevent this. It has to have an equal balance. That's the whole point of the scales of justice. That's the beauty of what our Constitution has granted us and the beauty of our forefathers. And now with other more criminal actions and liability, I will say, whether you like him or not, I do feel bad for Giuliani. He should be really enjoying his golden years. He was an excellent mayor of New York City. He handled himself incredibly well in the wake of 9/11 attacks and the destruction of the World Trade Center. He was a very highly regarded attorney general, prosecuting RICO and really cleaning up the streets of New York City. Now he is facing yet another indictment, this time in Arizona. A years-long criminal investigation into efforts to overturn former Donald Trump's defeat in Arizona has led to indictments against 18 individuals, including Rudy Giuliani and Mark Meadows. Arizona's Attorney General Chris Mays announced that a state grand jury approved criminal charges against these Republicans who submitted a false document to Congress asserting that Trump won the battleground state. The charges include fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Joe Biden won Arizona by over 10,000 votes in 2020, flipping a state Trump won in 2016. The charges in Arizona follow similar indictments in Nevada, Georgia, and Michigan. The indictments stem from actions by individuals who claim to be Arizona's Republican electors meeting in Phoenix on December 14, 2020 to sign a certificate asserting that they were the state's duly elected and qualified electors. Among those indicted are prominent figures in Arizona politics, including former state GOP chair Kelly Ward and state senators Anthony Carr and Jake Hoffman. Democrats have criticized these individuals as fake electors, alleging they engaged in a scheme to undermine democracy. However, the defendants argued that they were relying on legal advice and historical precedent, suggesting the certificates were a legitimate means to preserve objections to a contested election. The drama. I'm sorry. It is never ending. I know. It's just, you got to think. You know, one side is crying foul here, then we're finding that while crying foul, they're committing foul. It's two wrongs do not make a right. The indictment states that the defendants schemed to prevent the lawful transfer of the presidency to keep unindicted co-conspirator in office against the will of Arizona's voters, with Trump being referred to as the unindicted co-conspirator. The defendants also include attorneys John Eastman, Jenna Ellis, and Christina Bobb. Mays emphasized that the importance of upholding American democracy, stating that she will not allow it to be undermined. Despite these charges, Giuliani, Meadows, and other defendants have not yet commented on the indictments. The legal proceedings are part of a broader effort to address the aligned attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 election, but it's also And yes, I will state it. This is a targeted offense. I mean, never have we seen such a targeted, well orchestrated plan against a former president and his constituents, and also the indictment of attorneys who are making arguments. This is going to bite other people's tuchuses, I promise you. And a real quick note, because I found this to be really of interest, because I think that you can find that this holding by the Superior Court of New York State may have some implications on Trump's current criminal trial. Harvey Weinstein sex crimes conviction thrown out by the New York High Court. Harvey Weinstein's 2020 conviction for sex crimes was overturned by the New York's highest court, which ordered a new trial. The court ruled that the trial judge made fundamental errors, including allowing testimony that shouldn't have been admitted. Weinstein was found guilty of third-degree rape in a first-degree criminal sex act. The ruling won't set Weinstein free by any charge. He's been convicted also in California. However, this is what is the most important aspect of this thing. Judge Jenny Rivera, writing for the majority, which was a 4-3 majority, said that the trial court improperly allowed testimony about Weinstein's alleged past acts that weren't part of the charges, which is what the prosecution in the New York case against Trump are wanting to bring E. Jean Carroll and others that are not part of these charges. Her fraud or her defamation case and her alleged sexual harassment case has nothing to do with the charges, and many people still don't know what the charges are because those kind of keep being redefined by Bragg. The court ruled that an accused person has the right to be held accountable only for the crime charged, and that allegations of prior bad acts shouldn't be admitted to establish a propensity of criminality, just like when the judge in the New York trial against Trump found that his former attorney who pled guilty for tax evasion and trying to avoid major prison time, that also pled guilty to election interference. They can't use his guilty plea against Trump. And also there was an admonishment in the sense of, or a reminder, I should say. It was an admonishment of this one judge in the Weinstein case, but it was a reminder that in the United States, we have constitutional rights through the 14th Amendment of our Constitution, the due process, right to due process, and that every individual charged is innocent until proven guilty. In a current era of cancel culture, social media, internet, and anybody and everyone extolling their opinions as fact, we have lost our way on that, because now, thanks to this cancel culture, you are now guilty until you prove yourself innocent. And even if you do prove yourself innocent, good luck. You still have to try to then rebuild a reputation. So this is interesting, and why I say there may be a nexus is because this court, the highest court of New York State, said you are presumed innocent, whereas everything has been Trump is guilty, Trump is guilty, Trump is guilty. The media will say that Trump is guilty. And yeah, it doesn't help that he's bombastic and such, but there is the right to you have the right for due process. You are not to be, you can't use innuendo or other allegations or people's rumors against someone that is being held for criminal charges. So it's going to be interesting how, or if and how, the criminal defense attorneys for Trump will be looking at the Weinstein case, at least the holding. I'm not saying the exact Weinstein. He has been shown to be a disgusting pig, but the holding is very important, because that is what our Justice Department is supposed to be about. That is what our judicial system is about fairness, about being blind to what is out there and innocent until proven guilty. I am Alina Gonzalez Dockery. Thank you once again for joining us on Purple Politics. I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you here back next week. And I pray that we will have calmer times among our universities as we begin to celebrate those graduates and their futures.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families.